loving the heart. At the privatesectoract.com, that's where it starts, singing our song. What's going on? United we stand strong. Let's have some masses of chambers, email form. While you're taking the foreclosure, treat it as a casino. Okay guys, Ty Griffiths here. This is all about things you must understand if you're going to really follow these transcripts and all the rest of the emails. One of the human rights says that we have the right to proceed with contract and benefit from contract. That is a human right of ours. Judges and the lawyers not looking at contract, just bottom line going, let's read through this contract all together and make sure all the commerce is moved forward. But when you take a look at the Masters of Chambers, the judge down at the Court of Queen's Bench, and it's his job to be an unbiased mediator, this is the first thing these guys need to look at is contract, because the commerce courts start with contract law. If there's no contract, there's really no law. For them not to be right away asking, where is everybody's contract, and let me take a look at it, and let me be able to read the story as it goes along, they're ignoring all that. That is definitely human rights being stomped on when judges who are supposed to be unbiased mediators are just ignoring other people's contracts and just looking at the institutional contracts and going, oh yeah, we'll just follow through with those. One thing is conveyance conditions and what it really means. To convey something is very simple. It means if you have a house or you have a product or whatever and somebody has money, conveyance means it's fancy word for the swap. If you're the person handing over money, the first thing you're going to want to do is ask for proof of ownership. Before you're gonna go and just hand over money without knowing you're handing it over to the right person, obviously there's these conveyance conditions. It's conditions to get closer to the swap in order for everybody's interest to be protected and everybody get their due process. Now when it's private sector financing to financial institutions, so they're conveying it from the private sector to the financial institutions. And this is now an external transaction because you would see within the Bank of Canada, like the Royal Bank, the CIBC, all these other banks, TD, there's so many of them defined as financial institutions. We can see how there would be different conveyance methods. One bank is sending the money to another bank. But when now it is the private sector who is now going, well, yeah, I'm handing over money, but it's now an external transaction into a financial institution. There are definitely different conveyance conditions. One of them is proof of ownership, equity on redemption. The best example is the one with vehicles. If you are going to go buy a vehicle and you do not do the transaction properly by getting proof of ownership and you give somebody money. Now, proof of ownership, what if somebody gave you a photocopy of registration as proof of ownership and you gave them money? They might even give you a receipt. What does it come down to if when the police officer comes and knocks on the door and says that car has been reported stolen on your driveway, really what's going to happen? He's going to say to you, okay, well, you need to show proof of ownership because you're going to tell him, well, that's my car. Well, you're going to go get the information that the guy gave you. And remember, you accepted a photocopy of registration. When you give this to the police officer and say, well, here you go, that's my proof of ownership, he's going to go, well, you know what? This is a photocopy. And the guy standing by the squad car actually has the original. Now, keep in mind, the car was reported stolen. That's why the police officer showed up. That is a really good example of why equity on redemption is so important. Equity on redemption is so important. The mortgage note, very simple stuff. When you head over to the lawyers to buy your house by signing the mortgage papers, that mortgage you're signing, that original ink, is worth money. So what happens is that it's sent to the banks. The banks now sell it to the world market. So they sell it to the world market, they receive money back. Now let's say that time goes by and somebody goes into foreclosure. At the end of it, the bank already got paid. Somebody who's being foreclosed on and they don't ask the right question, hey, do you still have the original note? Or you have proof of ownership of the debt still that can be sold? We're going to get CNN up here. We're going to let some of this play as we sit here and watch it. Let's get some really interesting stuff what they're saying up there.
Last month alone, more than 70,000 families lost their homes. Foreclosures jumped a staggering 158% year over year. So can the little guy fight back? Well, Greg Hunter thinks so.
I think they can. In foreclosure, the bank has to show it owns your house. But what most people don't know is almost half the time, the banks don't have that paperwork to prove it in court. In many cases, it ends up lost or destroyed. It's a national problem that the banks would love to keep quiet because knowing that could be your best defense in fighting foreclosure.
Wow. So, I mean, it's not like just we're the only ones talking about it. The private sector knows about this. Really what we're doing is organizing everybody in how to act. And privatesectoract.com, sign up, because at the end of it, that's how you're going to get involved. And we're all going to be able to act as one, because the private sector is the largest entity there is. The original note. The original note comes down to, if the banks sold note, now what happens is that if they take the house, they got paid twice. So there's nothing wrong with asking anybody who has a debt, knowing they're allowed to sell it, if they still are the original ownerships, proof of ownership of the debt. You sell something, you got money back. If you go take a house, the banks got paid twice. This is why they're not letting a lot of these people speak. That's crazy, allowing the banks to be paid hundreds of thousands of dollars twice, because the bank's not really lending money. A Canadian family is thrown out in the streets, and they did everything they were asked to do. Why? Because the banks won't answer simple questions and the judges won't make them do it. Proof of ownership when you're handing over hundreds of thousands of dollars. Original note, guys, that's what it's about. You saw CNN and Dateline and all those big hitters. As a human rights activist, what we need you to do is we will sign agency over to you, every one of these people, so you can start interacting with the lawyers, and they, by law, would have to interact with you because it's just agency. I mean, that would be take human rights away from people if they say they're not going to interact with their chosen agent. So guys, if you just want to complain, I mean, we got the complaint sheet up there for the lawyers, for sure, where the information is, where to send it. This is what we need to do. Sign up, become a human rights activist, get involved through a reality TV, because the big reality of it is that you get to talk to the lawyers, and lawyers have to talk back to you. HotJusticeRealityTV.com, sign up. PrivateSectorAct.com, guys. This is stuff that we need to come together through the courts, not by force, okay? Virtual protest, that's the best, okay, guys? So this is what we are aiming for. Peace out. Would be great.